everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of HR Debatable. My name is Nelly, and today I'm here with two fantastic guests, Laura Tejada and Barry Flack. Hi, Laura, and hi, Barry.
Hi, Nelly.
All right, Laura, can I ask you to briefly introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Sure. So I'm Laura. I'm a scale-up expert, basically. Or I don't really like the word expert, but I go into companies, help them to put everything in place to scale, help them to put all of their HR systems into place, all of their onboarding, hiring manager training, and then the plan to recruit their talent. It could be talent partners as well. Another thing I do is I'm part of the Fuel program, which is a leadership development program done with bite-sized leadership training as well as then coaching alongside. And that's something that's very close to my heart because it's all about creating cultures that people really want to be a part of.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Barry, can you also briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, I certainly can. Look, I've been in the industry now for longer than I can imagine. I work in the portfolio dream, which gives me at this stage of my life the opportunity to go in under what I would call fractional embedded HR into typically small, medium-sized businesses and work right across their people agenda. I also get the opportunity to work on the vendor side. So that gives me startups and scale-ups in the people technology area where I can do some advisory. And as the fine folk at IRHR will know, I look to develop learning programs and lots of other stuff that all makes up portfolio.
Thank you very much. All right, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time today or listening for the first time, I will quickly explain to you what we do here at HR Debatable. So, as the name suggests, in HR Debatable, we debate on various HR and world of work related statements. What will happen is that I will give a bit of context, I will share a statement, and then I will ask both Laura and Barry to say whether or not they agree with the statement. And then, of course, they will get the opportunity to elaborate on that. So that's basically how it works. Laura, Barry, do you have any questions?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Then we are going to dive in. All right, a fun fact about today's episode, by the way, that I almost forgot to mention is that a few months ago, I did a poll on LinkedIn with various statements that people could vote on. And based on the votes and based on what statement got the most votes, we were at some point going to debate those statements in an episode of HR Debatable. Now, and that is actually today. So the first statement that we are going to debate on got over 50% of the votes in the poll that I held on LinkedIn, as a little bit of an introduction to our first theme and then the statement. The first theme is around skills-based hiring. By 2030, it is estimated that 85 million jobs will go unfilled due to a lack of available skills. Skills-based organizations will be best prepared to navigate a reality in which AI increases its ability to augment and form part of the workforce. Deloitte reports that 98% of business executives plan to incorporate more skills-based approaches in the future. Organizations leading the curve report performance increases, talent retention, and employee engagement. A quick Google search typing "degrees are overrated" gives almost 1.5 million results, including articles from renowned publications such as the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, and Forbes. The overall consensus seems to be that degrees are in fact overrated and overpriced, while skills aren't. They are actually often underrated. According to McKinsey, hiring for skills is 5 times more predictive of job performance than hiring for education, and more than 2 times more predictive than hiring for work experience. Employees without a college degree also tend to stay in their roles 34% longer than those with degrees. Why then do so many companies still require job candidates to have college degrees? There are various reasons for this. According to one study, these reasons include many employers have not yet updated or innovated how they screen talent and evaluate their potential. HR departments use educational status as a filter as they identify and assemble potential candidates. Employers believe that candidates with a college degree are more equipped for the role. And tradition simply is to blame sometimes. Things have simply always been this way. And all of this brings me to our first statement of the day. Degrees are overrated. Skills matter more in hiring. All right. Laura and Barry. Laura, I'm going to start with you. What do you vote?
I actually vote no on this one, which might come
Thank you. Yeah, that does come perhaps a bit of a surprise. I don't know. Barry, what do you vote?
It's a big fat no from me as well.
All right. Laura, I'm going to go back to you first. So yeah, please
Okay.
elaborate.
So mine is a no but. So I feel that companies hiring and shortlisting via degrees, you're sort of making degrees a prerequisite is a massive mistake, because you miss out on so much diverse talent, myself included, because I didn't go through the degree route. Not everyone is suited to the education system, especially secondary school and college, which is what you need to get onto most degree programs, or you do, 2-year access. But I don't feel that they're worthless. I have worked with some really good universities, and Exeter University was one, for example, that I volunteered with, and that was helping to prepare their graduates for the workplace. So they were offering, employment coaching, but they were also putting people on 3 days a week work placements, which I think was really good, because they came out with projects so that I could, back then when I was a recruiter, could then place them with physical skills and work experience. It also teaches people critical thinking, but I do feel there's a massive gap in the workplace of companies, So I still apply for jobs, even though they say you need to have a degree, because I just don't agree with it. I know I have, especially leadership positions, I have many years experience, the projects under my belt, and same even for junior positions. You've got people who come in with diverse backgrounds, who can offer a diverse way of thinking, and you miss out on all those diverse thinkers if you just want people who've come through that very straight and narrow route. So I believe that companies need to take off the degree requisites and open up to more experienced, diverse backgrounds. Then they're going to create, hopefully an environment that welcomes diverse thinkers, because that's the next thing. And they're not going to miss the loopholes. Yeah, I will stop there.
Thank you. Okay, Barry, that big fat no. Let's hear more about it.
Big fat no. Okay, speaking as a university graduate, been there, had the drunken nights, come out with a certificate. Look, my angle on this is that, quite simply, recruitment matching is broken. Yeah, despite tons and tons of innovation that we've had over the last couple of decades, we still haven't cracked this issue of how we access opportunity with the supply of talent that seems to be out in the marketplace. So for all of those who have got excited, and we've got excited because of the issue that's been in the post for a long time, which is that there is a skills mismatch, brought by change in demographics, change in technologies, changing industries, all of those things have come at us and come at us fast. We now need to fix a problem, which is actually about opening the access of opportunity. So the access of opportunity is the no for me at the moment, because for all of its faults at this moment in time, we haven't replaced the ability to verify an independent piece that allows us to qualify certain criteria about that individual. Yeah, in some instances, like those incredibly meaningful jobs that exist out there in healthcare, medicine, elsewhere, there is a clear and obvious validation that this person's equipped to do something that allows them to step into that. There is the, I think, taking yourself through it, other levels of evidence around grit, perseverance, the ability to just achieve a certain qualification at a certain level. And until such times as we get matching fixed on the skills element of it. So if I turn up and tell you that nearly I'm a brain surgeon at 21 because, I've written it on a CV, how do we go down that route of verification? Yeah, we got terribly excited a couple of years back about blockchain, about the ability there for a very decentralized way of validating and verifying things that we can do. We haven't put that in place. That remains for the sort of, the boffins of the HR world, a luxury that we just haven't reached. But for me at this moment in time, until we get in place an infrastructure and we make sense of those teenage years across society and all our societies to fill that gap around skills that matter, then I think it's unfair for us to then suddenly negate a lot of what goes on at this moment in time. So look, like anything, it's a no, because what I'm seeing is skills-based hiring is quite simply, show me at the interview stage that you can do this job. Let me tick a box that you can dance in this particular sequence, rather than it being about ontologies and verified data that tells me you can do the job. It's a mess. It isn't replaceable. So for now, in all its imperfections, let's keep the degrees.
All right, point taken. So what I gather from your response, Barry, is mostly that, well, we're going to stick with the degrees for now, for lack of a better way. That's what I get from it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Till we replace that infrastructure, which is bigger, broader, and wider. Like, we receive people into the place of work. Laura's, does it much more than I do in terms of that brilliant work that she does on this. But we really need that matching piece, that entry point, to be slicker, better, more consistent. One of the things that worries me is opportunity of access. The skills somebody who happens to be in a more privileged position to get those skills as a young person isn't solved. Yeah. The issue of access is still going, if you're from an underprivileged area, to be difficult to get the experiences, to get the skills, to get the validation, to get yourself into the workplace. None of that switch is going to cover that big societal issue. And so we need to raise the level of debate about more access of people, less snobbery on degrees, and much more willingness on employers to be able to vouch for the people coming in through the door.
All right, Laura, do you want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. I think it would be a shame to wait until we've updated the degree system or the education system. I think that's going to take so many years to update, sadly. And we've been talking about it for the last 30 years. Since the Industrial Revolution, we've been talking about how outdated our education system is, and also how non-inclusive it is. When I think about how I focus and how I can concentrate, I was thinking about this the other day. Open office environment for me now, I really struggle to concentrate. And for me, it's very much needs to be a collaborative environment to go in and make sense of being around people. When I'm at home, I can focus. And it was the same as when I was at school. I would mitch off to go and sit under a bridge to study in silence. And then they didn't actually let me sit a specific exam that I was very excited about sitting, because I hadn't had the attendance rate. So I basically slipped through the loop because I didn't learn in their style. And I think there are so many at the moment that will be slipping through the loop, and it would be a real shame to miss out on that talent. I agree that we obviously should ask for a degree for something like a brain surgeon, because you could really make a big mistake. Someone like a developer, or someone like a leader, or even a teacher, why do they need to have a piece of paper that proves, as you said, Barry, the university situation, you said you can go out, have a few drinks, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it is hard work, very hard work, and I have a high appreciation for degrees. My wife is a lecturer, by the way, so be very careful here. But it's also hard work proving yourself. I had to, for example, work from the very ground up to where I am now, which is why I think I almost come with a different experience, because I know what it's like to be on the ground. This is why I'm very much about people-led businesses. But yeah, so I think it'd be a shame to wait until we update that education system, because I think that's going to take a very long time, and we're going to miss out on so much diverse talent. And it's the diversity that helps us to see loopholes and grey areas. For example, 9/11 would have never have happened if the CIA had a more diverse recruitment process. It's just a small example that was in Rebel Ideas.
All right, I'm going to add something to this, because I have seen a couple of times already now, coming from the US mostly, from what I've seen, but I can imagine this is the same in Europe to a lesser extent perhaps, that what's happening is that a lot of young people, they get their degrees, and a lot of the times what happens is that then they end up with a big debt, because they had to, of course, finance their degree, and these debts can vary from like tens of thousands of dollars to sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, only to find then that nobody wants to hire them because, for instance, they have a lack of experience, they do not have the skills yet, and so on and so forth. So they feel kind of betrayed, because they've been sold by the universities this fancy, expensive degree, that they then get, only to find that nobody on the job market wants to hire them. I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit, but this is an actual situation, and I imagine to a lesser extent this happens in the UK, and it probably also happens on continental Europe. So this then begs the question, though, and I'm sure it's not the case for every single degree. It depends probably also on what kind of degree you're getting, right? But this begs the question, though, of really these degrees, do they really add that much value? I'm going to start with you, Barry.
Yeah, look, I mean, the good old degrees and society's approaches to it is, look, it's an easy target. Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. It's broken. I think the disappointing piece here that we're missing is where's the innovation to replace it? Where are we fixing? I could replace here's a degree in Robin Hood studies or Sherlock Holmes studies, somewhere to here's the, working in the chip shop for a couple of years. The applicability of skills, situation, what are we in receipt of when we grab hold of this young individual to start the world of work is actually the broken piece. Yeah. How do we bring them in? What are the skills at the entry point level? Are they at the right level? Are they doing the right things for us to fuel economic growth, to move it into a more digital age? Those questions, I guess, in frustration are not being answered by the absolute, we're not going to pay for someone going through the university. They're going to arrive with debt, therefore, how do we fix that transition? I get frustrated that for all of the recruitment technology brains we've had on this for decades, we haven't sorted matching. Yeah, we've twinkled around inside the system and we've got lots of good people out there, but we are not fixing the inherent issue that is now coming slightly too late. And I have now kids, ironically, I have, one of my kids now looking at choices that gets them closer to university. I'm not a big fan. I actually, would agree massively with some of the worry about where they get to and what it means for work. So, look, for me, I think all those structural issues are poor. Investing in some program that gets somebody in an academic learning environment only into a paid working environment needs improved, needs revolutionized, needs, a real clear and obvious investment rather than a personal debt the local family or the individual themselves have to carry on it. So as I hear, and rightfully, we could spend the whole time beating up degrees and they deserve it. I think the bigger issue is why have we not come up with the alternative that fixes these big structural issues that young people's ability to get into the market, get into the job, get into workplaces is proving more and more difficult.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. Laura?
If you touch on the education system, it's that and care homes for some reason with me. It's an area I'm very, very passionate about and I could go on about for ages. It's ironic because most of my friends, including my wife, are teachers, lecturers and things like that. So I talk about education system and how it so badly needs repairing. I've done my part, I suppose, of going and volunteering at secondary schools with the naughty kids, helping them to see their worth, their strengths, as well as in universities and with graduates who at first are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, but for example, in technology, if they don't get a job within the first 6 months, they're out of date. So it's very much then telling them, actually, you're going to have to go away and get some case studies under your belt, get some projects, some physical work experience. And they're like, but I have this degree that I've paid a fortune for. It just doesn't work like that. Sadly, well, not sadly actually, but companies, they want to see physical experience, which is why skills-based with the physical hands-on experience in the future is going to be what wins out. And I think that's what we need to be recruiting for now. But I'm not saying to poo-poo or to put down degrees. I think, people who fit into that way of learning, that's fantastic. They put themselves through that, and it does show, a lot of grit. But there is a lot of fixing to be done there. The education system is very out of date. They need to be learning employment skills. They need to be learning how to market themselves, because these days you don't just apply for a job. You have to have a brand on LinkedIn. You have to show up. You have to be on podcasts. You have to, almost do your own PR. It's not just a case of having a CV and sending it in. And then you need to have case studies to prove what you can exactly do for them. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think there's one last point that because I would like to actually, us to leave this debate, so to speak, with something, some kind of first step of what we could do. But if there was something, then that would have probably already been done. So I'm going to look at this from a slightly different angle, and then we go to our next debate. I'm a big fan personally of taking responsibility ourselves whenever we can. So rather than looking at this from, okay, what should organizations be doing? What should educational institutions be doing to make this better? Perhaps we could look at it from, okay, but what can people going to college or job seekers, but then like the really, really young ones, so the ones that basically come out of college and then enter the job market, what can they do? To improve this situation and to basically make sure that they have certain skills, and as Laura mentioned, that they have a bit of a brand going on already. I would argue that what they could do, and what perhaps doesn't always happen, is that they could make sure that while they're studying for their degree, that they work in a place that interests them, that they do internships that might not be paid, and I imagine it's very busy because you're also studying for your degree, but basically make sure that you get that experience at a company in some shape or form. What do we think about that? Laura, I'll start with you this time.
So yeah, I suppose in the beginning of my career, I worked very much with graduates, and also just even with my youngest person I ever worked with, who I did some sort of employment coaching with before I placed him with a client. He was actually 16 and he'd been creating apps and not really showing up at school. Didn't get his GCSEs, but he created a load of iOS apps, which at the time Objective-C, everybody was wanting Objective-C developers. I spoke to a company and they actually recruited him, put him onto a base of 20k, which for a 16-year-old is pretty good. Within 2 years, he was getting £400 a day in London. But to do that, the reason why he got that job was because he had physical apps out there. What I say to people is to get that physical work experience, whether that's voluntary, whether that's 2 days a week, whether it's on the weekends or the evenings, show transferable skills and absolutely tweak your experience to the role, and then get yourself out there. And I know that's really hard for some people to do. It's very, very uncomfortable for people, but do it in the way that works for you, whether that's written content, whether that's articles, whether that's videos. Share your knowledge and share how you stand out from the crowd and share your strengths. What is it that makes you different from everyone else? What is it that you can do, and what are your superpowers? And I suppose take some time to think about that, because most people don't even know what those are, and then go in and proudly present them and just shine. And sometimes it's taking a bit of a risk as well. Sometimes it's applying for things and you then follow up and you message the HR manager. You then follow up and you connect with the CEO and say, look, I've just applied for this, blah, blah, blah. Because we know most jobs at the moment, they're getting like 600 applicants, and it's a really tough market. So do everything you can, stand out, send them a voice message, send them a video, whatever you feel comfortable with, or send them a link to, this is an article I've just written that might be useful to your business right now, and I've just applied to your job. I think it's just going that extra mile and finding a system that works, and then replicating that again and again and again, because at the moment we need to apply almost en masse for jobs. So it means almost having a system, each job, okay, message HR manager, done this, done that, put a piece of content out that's relevant, and it's very much attract and detract. You want to attract the workplace that you're going to be happy in, that you're going to be able to thrive in. You don't want to attract somewhere that do not meet your values and is not a culture where you're going to thrive. So when you do present yourself online or with articles and things like that, I think it's also accepting some people are going to love it. They're the people you want to work for. Some people are going to hate it. Well, they'll probably disconnect with you anyway. And it's better off you've saved yourself working in a terrible place. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much. Barry?
Yeah, look, I've sort of made this point, but in full technicolor, look, it's an uneven market out there. Like, I think everything that Laura has said is the sort of thing you want to bottle up, and you want to sprinkle it across absolutely every corner of the earth, every institution or otherwise. I still worry that the flip across does not stop the people with access to the opportunities from receiving the best advice from the best schools, with the best network via the best parents, etc., 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 that are biased in the incoming selection processes in much the same way today that they worked there, that means they're this, or they went to that red brick university that means this. We've got to tackle that issue in terms of bias, and we've got to understand that the sort of level of infrastructure, output, intelligence, all the great stuff that people need to do in tomorrow's market is not taught to everybody at the right age to do that. And it's not about their skill set, it's about that access issue that allows them to be able to flourish. And yep, you'll get in certain areas those that rise above that, and they're great heroic stories. And I've worked in businesses where we've very actively gone after that, and we've given away scholarships and whatever. So I get lots and lots of these in, and we can only choose one amongst the 5,000 people in Tower Hamlets who apply for it. But some of them are just clearly incredibly sad stories of deprivation, quite simply non-educational input. They don't go to school. They're caring, they're sad or whatever. It's, a slightly more hopeful story that when we do make the transition, we fix a few things. One of them being the clear and obvious bias we have in decision makers to go to the people that look like them constantly, or to mitigate the risk of going, that person has none of the things we normally look for. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take them in because I've seen enough of it. We don't have enough of that either. So, for me, it's about spreading wider the top of the funnel for lots of good people, regardless of their background, giving them the sorts of advice that Laura brilliantly gave there, wider, broader and deeper, and giving a much more even playing field for people to walk into organizations regardless of where they've come from.
Just regarding the education system, sometimes I think it's quite ironic that we get asked what we want to do with the rest of our lives and put probably the most pressure in regards to education and things like that when we're going through a time when our bodies are transforming, our hormones are all over the place, we're highly judged, we're in non-psychological safe environments. Sometimes it can be very difficult to concentrate in as well. I sometimes think it is ironic that all of this happens during those years, but that's just another little point I just wanted to throw in there. What if we did it later and people had more practical experience during teen years, and then maybe in their 20s when they know what they want to do, maybe then they revisit education system. I know a lot of people, they do that. So, but yeah, just never thought.
Thank you very much.